Guess who is back? Yes, ball watching is back. Jake and Justin. Justin is back from overseas doing a little Euro trip. Justin, welcome back stateside. Any reflections or thoughts on the trip? What was the best place you went to?
I thought the best city out of the three, Prague, Amsterdam, and London. Prague was the best city. I thought it was awesome. Really cool sights to see. Best time, though, was at the Man City versus Man U game. That was something. I've never been to a game over there, so that was incredible. So I will definitely be going back.
Love it. Love it. Well, welcome back again. It's a good time to be back. We have 1.5 games this week, including one tomorrow, kind of a half game against Dallas. The boys are heading down to Dallas to finish 50 from the 50th minute on in the second half. Basically just a balls to the walls, see who can come away with some points fixture against Dallas. And this is, I think, I'm trying to remember the exact date of when this was. This was from May 6th, I believe. So a month ago was the game. This was actually, now it was postponed, and now we're going to play the rest of it here. And we were not in a great stretch then. So I'm really glad. I think we're lucking out. They're catching us at a bad time, and we're catching them, I think, at a decent time. We'll get into why coming up here, Justin. But any thoughts, anything before we get into final thoughts on Houston?
No final thoughts on Houston. Just real quick, wanted to say, and we'll touch on all the details of who's on the field and all of that and kind of what we're going to be looking at. But we weren't looking that bad in this game. We had 9 shots with 1 on goal. They had 5 shots too. With 2 on goal, we had 3 yellows in the game. Yes, it was during a rough stretch, so probably good that it ended early because we probably would have gave up one of those late goals. But no, I think I'd listened to the rest of the podcast that you did against the Houston game. And again, we got outpossessed, but just barely. And I think that's something that we're completely fine with and dealing with now. XG of 2.39. That's always good to see anything over 2. And we're obviously outperforming that in all of our games. So I think a lot of it is just playing at home, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it was actually, I'm learning a little bit that possession, we talked about how we don't want it and we don't need it. And I definitely don't think we need it, but we are beginning to get a little more dangerous with possession when it is given to us or we, decide to play with more of it. So I'm excited to see that. But I think, we're coming up against the Galaxy team later on this week, which we'll do a full preview on where that's the name of their game. So it'll be another one where we're very happy to concede that to them. But other thoughts, Justin, for Houston? I saw some good quotes I wanted to pull into here for everyone's awareness, but Sam Jones, our writer for MLS, had a great quote on here. It said, "This game was just another reminder. If St. Louis gets one punch in, they're going to make sure you go down and stay down the rest of the way." That's kind of how these games feel, where I feel like if we get one, there's a couple more coming, as long as we can keep them off the board, which is always great. Carnell had another good quote too. He's saying, we just try to stick to our guns and our principles and make sure that we are on the front foot and trying to create a bit of havoc and a bit of chaos, but it needs to be controlled. And I think we're getting better at controlling certain moments. I would agree. We've heard energy drink soccer, and that's kind of a trendy term to throw around here, but havoc and chaos, I do think, are kind of 2 ingredients in the concoction that we call City right now. I think we create those.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's kind of even more apparent with Klaus out and a lot of interchangeable parts that we're having, and with some of these stretches with Alm being out as well. And all these different guys, everybody just comes in, brings energy, and shows why they want to be on the field. And I think it's just describing us perfectly. So I love it.
The final thought I had on that in terms of quotes was, it was good to see Carnell draw attention to things that need to get better. And he said, "Are we perfect? No, we don't believe we are. We would like to control games better in the last 15, maybe 20 minutes. I'd like to develop there a little bit with our group." And you and I have called attention to that already, where we don't finish games that strongly. We can score, definitely, and that's great. But sometimes I feel like our most dangerous moments defensively come at that last draw, where it's just like you've got to just really make sure that you're protecting your lead and trying not to concede at that point and change the game and maybe lose points in doing so. So I like they're drawing attention to that. Otherwise, it was a great game all around. We handled our business in XG. We finished our big chances. This is another stepping stone, I think, another positive direction for us to continue to improve our home form, which is just nothing short of incredible to watch this team continue to show out in front of the fans, which you got to think the fans are a big part of that. And you'd be thinking, you'd be drinking the Kool-Aid if you weren't thinking that. We're like kind of a little 12th man situation now. Probably one of the best teams at home. I haven't looked at the stats to confirm that. We've got to have one of the best records.
We should look that up after this.
Yeah,
but we have to be. And I mean, it's not just us. They're talking about it on the Swing Around show too. That's some of the best things that people are seeing is watching the atmosphere at those games. And quickly, other things I want to touch on. Match day player Leuven made the team again. Not shocking at all, as he's trying to make a little bit of a push for an MVP, as we already discussed. Power rankings, we moved up in MLS from 7 to number 5, and ESPN we stayed at 5. which I think is fine. I think right now there are some other good teams out there with Cincy, LAFC, and some of these other teams, but we are top of the West. So give us a little bit more respect. What are your thoughts?
No, I think we're getting some respect. I think top 5 is from just form right now. And you consider how this whole season's gone for us. Yeah, we're setting all these expansion team records, but every team in the league would kill to be doing what we're doing. And there's teams that are better, like Cincinnati's having a great season right now. They weren't as great when we played them here, but teams are good, and we're going to run up against some solid sides coming up here. I believe, but I think we've made the most of what we've been given so far, despite that little lull that we had in the month of April. So I think we're getting better, and so is City 2. Justin, you had some commentary down for how City 2's been doing.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing a City 2 segment, keep you guys updated on the boys, because we've already seen that Johnny Klein will come up. We can see Caden Glover come up. So in general, they have 4 wins, 4 losses, and 5 ties right now. But of those 5 ties, the way that it works in MLS Next Pro is you go immediately to PKs. We've won 4 of those 5, which is the most in the MLS Next Pro. That gives us an extra point. So we're 7th in the West right now. Most recent game was last night with a win over the Tacoma Defiance, 2-0. Caden Glover had his second goal of the year after a kick saved by a shot that Johnny Klein had, and then Johnny got his own 4 minutes later. He leads the team with 6 goals. Good high press from the boys, just 1-2 pass and finish. Next game is against Huntsville FC in Huntsville, Alabama, who is last in the Eastern Conference with a record of 1-6-3. So
tasty.
Looking for the boys to keep going up.
Bring them on. Maybe a goal for every ping that you all just heard like 5 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago in my text. 1, 2, 3. That's how many goals we put up against Houston. Let's do that when City 2 takes on Huntsville coming up here soon. Let's do it again on Dallas. We only have a half game to play here, but I'm hoping we can put up some goals. Bad news, Justin, before we get into that, is Klaus. Looks like the Klaus man is going to be out for at least another 2 weeks after suffering a setback. I read fluid buildup. Which he was dealing with a quad injury. I'm going to go ahead and say this now. This is my hot take of the day, Justin. With how this situation is going right now and how we're playing in parallel with that, I don't see any rush they'll be making to push him to play here. And with how they're talking about 2 weeks till reevaluation, I'm washing June. And I'm going to go ahead and say that we may not see Klaus play until either the game before the League's Cup starts or the League's Cup itself or post-League Cup, which is in middle July. I just we're not beckoning for him right now. And if he were to be a different story, and it sounds like he's just got some stuff going on physically and mentally, I'm sure with the injury, it's got to be frustrating to deal with that I just don't see either party, him or us, in any rush to force him.
I think League's Cup might be a little far out. That's July 23rd. So you think like another 7 weeks?
You think about it, he got hurt April 22nd, and they said 10 to 14 days at the time.
I know. Yeah, but I agree with you. We don't need to rush it. Looking at our schedule coming up, he's going to miss, obviously, tomorrow, the Galaxy and Nashville. But then we play in those. Those are 2 decent teams. Then we play Real Salt Lake, San Jose Earthquakes, Colorado Rapids, and Toronto FC. I think we can get through that stretch. But then when you get into Toronto, LAFC, I know Inter Miami's struggling as they just fired Neville. But I think we'll probably look for him in maybe a month is what I'm thinking.
I hope so. I'm not optimistic with how this situation's festering, but I'm really happy with the team's performance, looking to fill in. Like I said, we're setting the expansion team records at this stage of the season in goal difference, in goals for, in points. It's been a stellar season for City so far, and looking to continue that tomorrow on Wednesday. The day of recording right now is Tuesday prior to the Dallas half game. Dallas, we're kind of doing a little bit of altered check-in since we already did this preview before the first half of the game that already happened a month ago. We're talking about more so what's happened since then. So Dallas is a record of 6-5-5 win-loss draw total this season. They put up 23 points, good for 4th in the Western Conference. You know who's in first. And that's over 16 games played. We only have 14s. We have 2 games in hand on them. Away form, not as good as home form for them, which is not shocking at all. Since we played them for a half game, they have played Austin, where they won. Vancouver, they won. Houston, where they drew. San Jose, they drew. Sporting, where they lost. And Nashville, where they lost. So Nashville probably being the best team of the bunch there. And this team really hasn't changed at all since we played them. A lot of their form still largely hinges on the success of their forwards and wingers and ability to get in behind through balls or turn their players and play very, very direct, because their defense, while not conceding an overall crazy amount of goals, isn't that crazy to begin with. Because, I mean, look at that. Austin's not good this season. We were shocked about that. Vancouver, we know, is not great this season either. Houston, we just spanked here. So, I mean, they have some results, but results that are not overall that impressive. Sporting, like, they lost to. So another game where I think Dallas is the better of the teams that we've played recently. So I'm excited to see us stack up again, especially in a very, very concise fixture like this. It'll be very different, almost like a great experiment to see how these teams treat this. But they're not a scary opponent. I'm just going to be honest. They're not scary. I'm not saying they can't beat us. I'm not saying they will beat us. I'm just saying that while they are the better of the teams that we've played against recently, they're not that great either.
And I would agree. And I think the one thing that they do better at is playing at home, because they usually have a great atmosphere. Who's buying a ticket for a Wednesday game of 40 minutes, like getting into the stadium and all of that and doing parking? So I don't really know what kind of atmosphere we're really going to face once we get into there. But we do know the players that we're going to be playing against. So, and Jake, do we want to touch on like the rules and stuff before we get into all this?
Man, yeah. I'll be a little bit generic with the rules because I quite honestly don't know them the best. And I bet a lot of the coaches probably didn't know them the best going into this, but like, bottom line for you all to understand here is this is generally how it's all going to go. And there's some exceptions. Is how this game will be restarted is from the moment of suspension. So if it was a throw in, if it was a free kick, or if it was in play, there'll be a drop ball. They'll start from there. All the same players that were on the pitch at the time have to start. If there have been injuries since then, for example, Dallas is dealing with some, which we'll get into, they are allowed to pull players from the substitutes and put them on there without burning a substitute. And if there are players that were injured that were substitutes or loaned or transferred, what have you, they can backfill those positions. But I will say Dallas is in a bit of an injury crisis right now. So we'll be facing probably a pretty different 11 than what we rolled into. Remember, like Areola was pulled off because I think he hurt himself pretty early on in the game. We're not dealing with that as much, and we'll get into who we're missing on that side. But it's a funky way to go about a game.
It is, but it is one good thing to note is that we didn't make a sub at all within those first 50 minutes. So we will have all of our subs. We'll touch on our starting lineup and everything. But otherwise, like you said, it's literally going to start just like the game stopped from wherever the ball was. I don't even know where the ball was when it stopped.
Yeah, I don't know either. And it's hard to go back and find it. I was digging around for like who was in the field yesterday and trying to find out who our starting 11, because our starting 11 writes itself. There's no predictions here.
Right.
It'll be the same exact starting 11. But for Dallas, two players in the field that I want to draw your all's attention to start and that's Ferreira, who's put up 9 goals in 17 appearances so far this season, put up 18 last year. So he's about halfway toward his tally from last year. He's extremely effective when he puts the ball on goal. When he's not, I think he has like 42 shots and only 16 have been on goal. He can be pretty wasteful sometimes. He's a big forward in terms of scoring output, not a big forward in terms of size, but he'll be one they're looking to lean on to get their goal tomorrow.
And I just looked. Jake Heap was not a part of the final roster for CONCACAF Nations League US.
He wasn't. He was not. Nope. Hader O'Brien is a Colombian, a 28-year-old Colombian who scored his second goal of the season against Nashville. He is on the pitch when that game is suspended and plays as a winger for them. So he's kind of more of the assister for Ferreira, but he scored recently in that big game against Nashville. They did lose, but Nashville's a great opponent. We'll learn that very soon here coming up. Otherwise, on the bench, they have some talent. And notably, because of this injury crisis, they're leaning on an 18-year-old Nolan Norris as a central midfielder, who I think was a center back by trade, getting minutes in the central midfield due to this injury crisis. He'll probably have to sub right into the game. And I mean, sub in terms of he'll start, but he won't be considered a sub, but he'll be backfilling one of Sebastian Lletget or Paxton Pomykal, who have both since gone out injured. And Alan Velasco, who we talked about in the preview, was just returning from injury. A great young 20-year-old Argentinian, huge market value of north of $8 million, came from Argentina's first tier. He's got 2 goals, 1 assist so far this year. He's a promising player. I've watched some highlights and game footage from them. He's got a spark to him, and I imagine they insert him into the game to start as well, just to get a spark going. But those are kind of the names that I would think about. Otherwise, Justin, they're hurting a little bit.
Well, that's what I think you're right. The 2 guys that you already mentioned with Nolan Norris and Alan Velasco, I think they'll actually be starters, and they will come on immediately when the game starts, and it won't count as a burnt sub. So look for them to come immediately on right when we start. And we already touched on this a little bit, just as a reminder, though, the style with Nico Estevez, Spanish manager. He has coaching experience, lower levels of Spain, interim role with Valencia over there. He's also one of Greg's guys, Greg Berhalter for the U.S. men's national team. He was assistant coach for them 2019 to 2021. Dallas hired him in December of 2021. Big 4-3-3 guy, fully committed to that. Very disciplined, but also very fluid. You can see these guys, and we've talked about it. They can, I mean, they're pretty injury ridden right now, but it's a team that's full of U.S. men's national teams guys, and they have a lot of just connections from playing outside of Dallas together. So they like to dominate the ball and do quick counters like we do similarly. And then going forward, they always try to win the ball at high transition spots and have the speed from usually Areola and Jesus Ferreira to try to do a 1-2 pass and a quick shot like we do.
Yep. I'm seeing some questions here, which we'll get to at the end for everyone asking those. Thank you for everyone for joining in, by the way. If you're here, shoot us a like on this YouTube. This is a YouTube only stream. So you guys are very exclusive here. And we are going to, keep this on YouTube after, but throw us a like, throw us a subscribe so you get notified when we are going live here. But Dallas is a team, like I said, and like you said, Justin, they're going to rely heavily on the wingers and forwards. They're going to look to turn guys, get in behind, play off the backs and shoulders of Parker and Bartlett, who are both starters in this game since they were playing together to start this game. And they've been starting for us. So it could be a crisis of speed in this game and how well you can either hold your line for offsides and playing together, very, very compactly versus, being exploited with the speed and dynamism of some of their forwards. So for me, Dallas, this is going to be interesting. They're coming off 2 losses in a row, winless in their last 4, going through some injury crisis. I feel like if you want to summarize Dallas in terms of their strength and vulnerability offensively, they love to get to the end line and cut back cross and try to have a finisher come in from the central part of the 18. They love to send their forwards, like I said, in through balls behind, use their speed. But defensively, this is a team that I've not been impressed with in terms of how they can deal with crosses, both aerially and on the ground, and set pieces. And I think set pieces specifically are an area where we'll look to draw some fouls in dangerous spots because look how lethal we've been with those chances over the last couple of games. Leuven has been an absolute killer on these recently, and to see him score like he did 2 games ago and then set up another goal like he did this past game, I'm looking for him to be a big impact player for us in this fixture because they have a weakness there.
I think it's going to be great, and kind of wanted to touch on quickly when you said they look for cutbacks. That's going to be big. It's not going to be our guys. It's going to be Parker and Bartlett. When it's actually a cutback, we're going to be looking at Miggy and Ostrak, who started in the middle in this game. So they need to make sure that they're tracking back and marking up. Leuven and Vasilev are on the wings. It won't be as much, but definitely need to make sure that we're making communication between Bartlett, Parker, Miggy, and Ostrak.
Yeah. Otherwise, let's look at Dallas overall. Offensively, they're bottom 10 in the MLS when you think about XG. Not great. They're only averaging 1.19 goals for per game. Also, that's a little bit average for them. Defensively, they're top half in terms of XG against and top 10 of goals against. When you think about their actual productivity on goals against, they're only allowing 1.13. So a little bit stingier on defense. I'm still not overly impressed with them on defense. I think they are vulnerable, especially in the areas that we just highlighted there. And attacking, we've already highlighted where they're looking to be dangerous. They're looking to play these short little passes, they're top 5 in through balls and behind. So we know exactly what we're getting from Dallas. They're extremely predictable. For me, it's a matter of can Carnell coach the team to this ability to be able to execute to this plan, because we know where they're going to hit us. They're not going to pull any rabbit out of the hat and all of a sudden show us something different, especially with the minimized roster they're going to have available to them and quality talent. For us, though, Justin, our starters in the field for this game were Berkey, Nelson, Parker, Bartlett, and Nerwinski. I think a great shot for Nelson to try to provide some more competition for Hebert, now that it sounds like for now Hebert is our starting left back. So a good chance for him to cement himself in competing for that spot. The next 4 are Indy, Ostrak, Perez, and Leuven. Kind of like 4 central midfielders, if you're asking me. I wonder if he'll make any changes to that, because then up top you have Celio and Joaquini. So overall, pretty good lineup when you think about how we've been playing recently. Notable absence, before I let you comment on this, Justin, is no Hebert. He was on Canada men's national team duty at the time, so he wasn't even on the bench. Or was he on the bench? Oh, no, he was on the bench.
No, he
did make the bench. I could see him coming in. Maybe he could even replace Nelson if Carnell wants to go that far to start. We'll see about that. We do have Blum on the bench, which is nice. We have Stroud on the bench, so he could play. Otherwise, it's interesting. The only other person I'll say we're missing is Alm. So we're just missing Alm. He was still hurt with his abdominal injury at that time. So it'll be interesting to see who actually features in subs, because, like we said, it's a shortened game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we take out Miggy or Ostrak and put in Blum just for a little bit more of the defensiveness right there in front of our defense. But one thing I will say is if I'm Carnell, I am telling Indy and Miggy and Nico and Celio to just fly around. You have 40 minutes. I'll give you 25 of that. And then I'm switching you out with Aziel Jackson and Jared Stroud. And then whoever's got the best legs, and we should just press the hell out of these guys until we have some turnovers. So everybody's going to be running as hard as they can. This is not going to be one of those ones where you need to conserve yourself. I don't care if it's hot in Dallas or not. Fly around until you cramp.
Yep. Agree. Well, Justin, in terms of betting, we should do our Grammars and bets, locks of the day. Not going to be able to do much betting here. There are no lines because it's kind of, like I said, a half game. We'll probably look to hop on it live, though, and see what happens there. So we'll keep you all updated there. But otherwise, predictions, I've got a 1-1 draw on me. And I, by the way, would be very happy with that. Away points against the 4th-team Western Conference, getting a point. You got to get a point here for me. Keep this train moving, and I think a draw is well more than enough to do that. I see you've got here a W, Justin.
I do. I go 1-0 W because I really do think that this is going to play into our hands well. I would start by putting Blum in for Ostrak, especially if he already has a yellow, technically. That's one thing we have to remember is that in this game specifically, Parker, Ostrak, and Nico have yellows. And so any additional yellow on them would be another red. So I'd be okay with doing Blum for Ostrak, a little defensive-minded there, but then you got to have Indy, Celio, Leuven, and Nico just flying around and then replace them if needed with Isak Jensen, Jared Stroud, Pedro even, Aziel Jackson. So I got a 1-0 dub. I would love to see us get a goal pretty quick and then just kind of pack it in. Like I said, though, I don't think the atmosphere is going to be that great down there.
So, Justin, questions before we close out here. Listeners have dropped in. Brooks asked, how will the strategy change with a 40-minute versus a 90-minute game? Recently, we have not been closing games out well in the last 20 minutes, so a bit worried about the short fixture. I'm a bit worried, too. It's a learning experience for everyone there, and I'm fascinated to see how this will go. I mean, when you think about it, every team should be coming out of the gates flying. It's a short-sighted game. Everyone's got their legs underneath them. We are coming off a Saturday night game. Both teams are. So we have that going for both of us. So it's going to be an interesting one, but I don't think the strategy changes that much. I think you look to come out, start hot. Like we've been starting games, get a goal early and protect that lead and try to add to it incrementally. Anything that you would say against that, Justin?
No, I do think you are right. I keep thinking the positive of it. Just the side effect or devil's advocate. We need to make sure we don't give up a quick one. We can't go down there. We're going down there for a quick 40 minutes. Like we're probably flying in. I guess tip this morning is probably when we went. So
probably
it's going to be a quick turnaround for the fellas. So we need to make sure that we also kind of ease into it in that sense. We do have another question from Kevin here. Who gets the goal? So Jake, I know that you already have one. You have a 1-1. Do you have who's the goal for City? I know who's getting mine.
I'm gonna go Indy, getting back on the score sheet.
Okay, I like it. I'm going with Celio. I think it's going to be a high press. We're going to get the ball. It's going to be a quick 1-2 with him and Nico, and he's going to finish it.
Final question we have is when's the transfer window for MLS? Secondary transfer window for MLS opens on July 5th. So that is coming up here shortly, where teams can add, usually from overseas, given all the European seasons just wrapped up. And finally, another good question from Kevin, full of them today. Are we ever going to have a full strength squad this season? Man, I hope so, because I was bugging my wife about it. We just had coffee earlier this morning. I'm like, man, we just haven't even been able to play a game so far this season with our full preferred starting 11. You're thinking about Nilsson and Parker probably as your center back pairing. Hebert probably in the mix there too. Maybe Norinsky on the right, and then Blum, Leuven, probably Vasilev at the tip of that, and then Alm and between Stroud, Ostrak, Celio on the left side, and then you've got Klaus or maybe even Joel Keeney on the left side, and then you got Klaus up top. So there's so much to look forward to with this team. We have not seen our full preferred starting 11 yet, so it'll be scary when we actually get to that.
Yeah, I would say we'll definitely get to it. We go all the way through October 21st. This is so long this season, which is great. I love it, but it's just we have plenty of time. It's good and bad for that sense, but I think we'll get there.
Yep, I do too. Well, enjoy this game tomorrow, everyone. Don't know if I'll make it out to the pitch for this one. It's the Wednesday night, weeknight game. Might be on duty with Will to catch this one, but we'll definitely be back at the pitch for Sunday, which is going to be a blast. And we'll be back on Thursday with a preview of the LA Galaxy game, which what a fun week to be a City fan. I'm really hoping we can start it off with a nice dub in a half game tomorrow over Dallas and just cement our spot at the Western Conference top of the table. So to that end, Justin, I think we'll close out for the day. We will catch everyone again on Thursday. Hopefully you all enjoyed this, and let's go City.
Let's go City.